I'm very pleased indeed to have Ashley Stafford with us to talk about singing. He comes from it from a very unusual angle because he has been a professional singer as an alto. He sang with all the major groups. 16, he was a lay clerk at St. Paul's, and he found that there was so much problem with people's backs and bearing and generally how they carried themselves that he took a course in osteopathy in order to help his singing teaching, which I might say was already pretty effective. And so he became an osteopath and has learned lots of things. So I myself have been to him with the odd back problem, which he's magically got rid of, amazing, and given me exercises to avoid getting into that position again. And I know lots of people who've been to him for singing lessons, and he's come on courses and done amazing sessions. So there are loads and loads of talking about singing technique, and we're going to add to it, of course. But of course, it boils down to two things. One, what do we actually mean by singing well? And then secondly, having defined what we mean by singing well, how can we best achieve it? And I suppose, to add a little third thing, how do we then judge it? How do we then assess whether it's any good or not? And so let's go through those things. So starting first of all with Ashley, I'm sorry, I forgot that you're also a conductor. And
Not really, no,
yes,
definitely not. I wave my hands in front of groups of very good singers from time to time, and they take it from there.
That's
But
conductor.
it's an interesting experience, it must be said, to allow that, have that experience too. Just to add to what you said, Ralph, I think what I have noticed over the years, when I started teaching, to be honest, I had always simply loved singing. And I was very, very lucky as a boy treble to be encouraged by some excellent teachers when I was a boy at Westminster Abbey. And they were very simple and direct in their approach.
Who was in
And,
charge then? At
sorry,
Westminster Abbey? Who was in charge when you were at Westminster Abbey?
Douglas Guest.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
Oh,
Douglas Guest. But we had some fantastic back rows, really great singers like Harry Barnes, fantastic tenor, Sandy Henderson, an amazing bass who could basically sing off the piano, downwards that is, and and the great altos too, with fantastic people like Paul Esford joining the back row as well during my time. But the thing was, for some reason, I was very lucky that as I progressed from treble hood into alto-ness, I didn't really feel I had any fundamental problems. And I think it's because I had a very good, straightforward delivery from these
yeah.
teachers. I mean, my first Sandy, he said, we spent the time with good structure with the mouth and reading the Psalms out loud, declaiming the texts. So that, it was a very simple thing. I was only 6, 7 years old, and I was being told to declaim, "O God, to whom vengeance belongeth, thou God to whom vengeance belongeth, show thyself." And Sandy was really encouraging me to get this out. And I think that is, those sorts of things still very helpful. But the thing was, as I started teaching, I was much more interested, because I hadn't had that kind of difficulty, I was much more interested in wondering why people struggled rather than telling them what to do. So that was that exploration of why an individual was struggling to produce their voice in a way that they were happy with or satisfied the music. And that exploration took me into Alexander technique, into massage work, which I did some studying in, some healing work. And all these things were interesting, but didn't fire me up. And it was only when I met a particular osteopath in my 30s, I just said, wow, this is where I need to be. This guy, this osteopathy thing, it's such a broad all embracing. You know, you're really going right into the embryology, the physiology, the neurology, really embracing that, as well as having a basic medical background, so you know you're doing the safe thing. That really fired me up and
At
helped
what
me
stage did you
understand.
really think you knew what singing well is? Although it's a lifetime's job, I understand, to work out how to achieve it.
Yeah,
When did you work out
I
what
think
singing well is?
consciously, I consciously began to realize what it was when I started having lessons with Jessie Cash.
Oh, yes.
Jessie, she, in a way, she linked back to Sandy Henderson, who was about this honest delivery, direct and honest and straightforward.
Well,
And
that's
Jessie,
like your reading of the Psalms, isn't it? Your honest
exactly,
delivery is feel about vengeance
and
or feel
feeling
about anything.
it.
Yeah.
And this is where Jessie was. She was really keen to notice if the blocks were in the body and whether they had, you know, were blocking your own personal emotional connection to your sound. So she wanted you to find your sound. And it was when that she made that explicit for the first time,
Yes.
I realized that I'd been doing that or attempting to do that, and that made a difference.
I think it was Jesse Cash who we had been trying on a choral course to get a piece of Poulenc in tune, and it always went slightly flat by the end. And I said, "This will get better, okay." She then said to us, "We remarked on how people don't skip these days. When you grow up, you don't skip. This
Mhm.
is for the whole course. You skip when you're a child." So I
Yeah.
said to the whole course, how about a challenge? As we go from here, the music schools, over to the chapel, I will skip all the way like a child.
Mhm.
Will you, being careful about the road at the certain place,
Yeah.
will you skip with me? And they said, yes, we will. So the whole course skipped to the chapel like children.
Yeah.
And we went into the chapel and I said, we're going to do the Poulenc first. We did the Poulenc and they sang it amazingly and perfectly in tune.
Yeah.
She's a
Yeah.
magician.
She is, and she's got, and she still is, living in Totnes, 86 years old, and still
Really?
working her magic. Yeah,
Oh,
she's
right.
great.
Did she ever say what is good singing? Or do we all have our own? Because we haven't really touched on what we were first going to talk about, which is what is good.
Well, I think it leads straight to it, you see, Ralph. I
Right.
think I did a straw poll among my students over the last couple of weeks and asked them, said, well, what does it mean to you to sing better? What, you know, after having a few lessons with me or more, what do you feel? And, you know, as one person said, well, of course, it depends who you ask. And I said, yes, it does. But, you know, so one person was very clear, one sentence came out, and she said, to translate what I'm feeling into my voice. And I think that was that's a very interesting statement. Another person was a little bit more analytical. She said, it's being in more control of my body and but less analytical, more in the feeling of singing, and being able to be less focused on notes, to be more in the meaning of the music.
Well, the
So,
thing which I learnt from Barry Rose
yeah,
more than from anyone else is um, get the choir to feel it. Get them, and he did it by text. And he said, right, take the text you were saying about Douglas Guest and reading out the Psalms. He said, take the text, make it mean something for the choir, not telling them about singing together or singing in tune or anything. When they really mean it, then full faculties are at work and
absolutely.
you can deliver, and
Yeah,
that's what you mean, isn't it? And I know
absolutely.
from when I sing well, I know I'm thinking, oh god, I really feel this, and I feel relaxed but
Yeah.
energized.
I think you're so right because the other thing you just said, relaxed. I think anxiety is hugely present because people want to succeed. So the
Yes.
keenest young singers are often struggling somewhere because anxieties actually affect the way the ears work. So your inner ears is not
Yes. Yes.
translating the feeling for you. So you think you're doing something and you're not. So a lot of people are struggling with that. So the anxiety, so getting rid of fear and the confidence to trust your ears, and I
Um,
think it's really essential.
Absolutely. We all want to relax, but if you relax completely, you simply fall over. So
Yeah,
it's a question of what that means and how you
yeah. I
direct.
think most people think relax means collapse,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
and I tend to use the word, maybe instead of relax, use the word release,
Yes, absolutely.
because when you release, you've got a sense of something bounding up. So when you breathe in, interestingly, although the diaphragm is contracting,
Yeah,
the body needs to release to allow the breath in.
yes, yeah,
So, and you will be very aware of the less experienced singer or the young singer who, when they take their breath, actually it's the breath that stands them up. I'm now standing up straight because I've got a breath. And then, of course, you start singing and you completely collapse. And you also have no control of that breath. But
yes,
that's, by the way. So somebody else said better can mean an increased awareness of your own patterns. This is quite a mature singer. In other words, your postural, breathing, listening patterns, the things that affect it, so that you can then take control of the environment that comes towards you, because we are always responding to the environment. And this is why someone like yourself is so successful with choirs, because you create such a great environment where they can take some risk and literally enjoy themselves a bit
yes,
more, rather than worrying about it all being perfect in that specific moment.
yeah,
So this same person said that this, awareness is hard to maintain in the face of life's experiences. As a singer, you feel exposed,
yes,
and singing is exposing.
yeah.
And she actually said spontaneously, anxiety causes her ears to switch off, and then her tuning suffers. So this is a very specific thing. So singing better is both getting that awareness, but also building the confidence to trust your own physiology, really.
And ideally, singing itself should be the doctor who helps you get to that place, because actually, look how people. My cleaning lady, I once came back home to Ballards in Eton, and my wonderful, and I was singing as I came in through the door. And she said, "Oh, you're happy." She said, "You're right," and I, great lady,
Yeah,
uh, and I reflected. I remember reflecting. Yeah, okay, I'm either happy or I'd like to be happy, so therefore I'm singing.
yeah.
So singing can be a
Oh, definitely.
manifestation of the happiness, but it also can make us happy. Of course, that's why we sing in choirs. So
Absolutely.
let us let the singing make us feel in the mood for singing and physically in the right position for singing.
Definitely. Well, it ties straight into what yet another student said to me, which she said, singing makes me feel happy, and it's part of me in ways that nothing else is. Therefore, better means less frustrated, less sad, less miserable, and a more positive sense of well-being.
Yes, it's
Now, great.
fascinating that neither of us has said anything about the sound yet.
Not yet.
When we're singing well, all these things actually are symptomatic of when a good sound, what we're doing when a good sound is made, and
Absolutely.
and given all these things that we've said, with any luck, there'll be a lovely sound coming out.
Yes, because you're getting to the heart of the person or the soul of the person. I'd just love to read you just one more thing from another student. He's really took this to heart when I asked him, and he wrote a little essay, but I'm not going to read the essay, but I really will just read this bit. He says when he makes small improvements in his singing, and he thinks of that as quantitative because he's trying to extend his range and make the voice easier because he's got a really heavy voice. But he said the reason these small improvements have such an emotional impact on me is that I believe my voice is a reflection of my soul. In other words, who I really am as a person. That's
Lovely.
interesting. It's quite a deep thing to say,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
know? And
fantastic.
I think, therefore, so one of the things that I find difficult or have found difficult to accept in certain institutions of higher education to do with singing, let's say, is the idea that there is a way of singing if you are going to be successful, and it involves certain things. And the idea that you need to be making this sound in this particular way in order to be successful. Now, this is in spite of the fact that every single absolutely top flight singer is singing their personal sound, and their personal emotional journey is present, and we hear it, and that's why we're attracted to it. But they still insist on saying, if you're going to sing opera, this is the sort of sound you need to make. And then they do that, and of course we're all terrifically good mimics.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you have singers going through the system believing that if you mimic this sound and you say sound like this is what good singing is. But it's not, at this point at least, connected to their own beingness and how
Yes.
they.
Well, one of the best singing teachers I've ever encountered, who was Bruce Pullen, and who I've had the good fortune to be taught by at school. And he came on choral courses for several years, never demonstrated. I'm not saying you should never demonstrate,
No.
but it's interesting that he never demonstrated. He watched. When you went in for a singing lesson with him, it was like going into the doctor, to a really good doctor. He would just watch you and listen to you, and he would say, right, were you a chorister? Yes, I thought
Yeah.
so, because you went like this or something, you know. Tell me what you'd like to do with your voice. Oh, yes, because I can see that so-and-so, yeah. Yeah, and you'd think, you know, because I went into lots of his lessons to watch, because he was a genius, and still is. And I listened to him and thinking, well, come on, when are you going to make some improvement to this poor person? And he'd say, yeah, okay, try this. Just sit down for a moment. I'll tell you all about your singing. Okay, right, try this. You try an exercise. Okay, try this. Okay, try this. Oh, did you hear that? Do that
Yeah.
again. Yes, because you're doing this, that, you know, and do it again. And he was just like a doctor. It's absolute wonderful magic. And they, one after the other, they came out of his lessons overjoyed, because he'd hit the nail on the head, never demonstrated himself, just listened and worked
But
out.
also, don't you think that's taking the individual seriously?
Yes, yes,
Individual seriously.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
if
as
you're
the
in
best doctor.
a lot of kids go through school, and yes, there's a nodding towards individuality, but basically you're being told this is what you've got to learn for physics, this is what it's all very external. So the stuff is out there,
Yeah,
you have to absorb it,
yeah.
then you learn it, and then you pass your exams. But if you treat singing like that, it's not going to be as successful as if you actually go treat the individual and say, what is it that you have to offer? This is your way of expressing yourself in the world.
Don't get me on to exams. We can go beyond exams. Exams should be a thing of the past. We should move on. I hope that the word exam will disappear from our vocabulary,
Well,
but
that
don't
would be
get me
nice,
going.
wouldn't
Yeah, no, that's another
it?
set.
But that's another
Oh yeah, that's
conversation.
another conversation.
But it's what we were just saying there. But so, I mean, I noticed, you know, Anita's video, excellent video on the
Yeah,
basics of breathing with her balloons and things.
yeah,
And
very, very.
she mentioned, not in passing, but she mentioned the fact that when we come into the world, as long as we're born healthily, the first thing we do is take a breath. And
Yes,
so it's embedded. We're going to take a breath. Breathing starts the moment you're born, if you're all things being well. But the next thing that happens after the first breath is the first cry of the baby.
oh yes,
And
yes,
this cry,
of
this is a
course.
spontaneous, emotional response to entering the world.
Yes,
And
yes.
to me, all vocalization, and hence, as you build up this sophistication, all singing has its roots right there. It really is the personal expression of vitality, of being alive. And among other things, it says, I'm free to be me.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, what happens, we spend the rest of the next 15 to 20 years being told, shut up.
Yes, a bit less.
So,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of interesting things. Jesse used to say that one of the reasons a lot of people find the and the ah vowel difficult,
Yeah.
is because it's very linked to the baby's cry.
Yes. Yes. Ah,
Those sounds. And
yeah.
she, along with laughing, of course, which are very close. But the interesting thing, you fall over in the street as a kid and you start crying because you're hurt. And the first thing mother says is, shh, 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 it's okay, it's
I
okay, shh,
know. I
shh,
know.
shh.
I know. I know.
So it's not, I mean, it's more about, well, let's not worry about what it's about, but it's interesting that these little messages that young kids get, can either stimulate them to be more vocal because they're not taking it. I am alive. This is me. In which case they get labelled as being probably they get a label these days, and or the other where they become a bit more quiet and careful in the way that they vocalize to protect those around them from themselves, because this is a way of really getting yourself out in the world.
And do you share with me the horror of dummies being given to babies?
Well, I do, although sometimes I've been on a bus and I've been really glad that the mother.
You've given one.
I,
Fair enough.
there is a
Fair enough.
conflict here.
Yes, yes. But just the automatic putting in of a dummy,
Yeah,
but
no,
then
it's
I'm not a father, so I really can't, but I shouldn't
no,
pronounce on
no.
that.
I think there's a lot of stresses and demands in the
Oh, yeah.
modern world which don't allow for the things that happen. And maybe babies cry because they're in the modern world in a particular setting, which might not be the case elsewhere. Who knows?
Babies want to express.
Yeah,
Mothers,
absolutely.
mothers talk to babies. Mothers know that the baby will understand
Yeah,
5% of what they're saying, but mothers
there's
carry on talking. Yeah.
there's huge research out there showing extraordinary abilities of babies. There's a study been done by two academics in Edinburgh
Oh, did you?
about babies
Yeah,
under. So they were watching babies' gestures,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
They're
and
conductors.
yes, they gesture, they gesture. It looks random, but
Yeah.
when the mother was singing to the baby,
So does conducting.
they measured these things, and the baby was not following, was leading.
Oh,
By a microsecond, the baby's gestures predicted what the mother's vocal tone was going to be.
wow.
So, in other words, there's something inside our brain already that understands this ebb and flow, this in and out, this rhythmicity, which is so essential. I mean, rhythm, as we know, is what, in my view, is the fundamental of music. Without rhythm, there's no music.
Well, it's
But
essential.
that's another story.
One of the human things about being human is that we understand each other really well and know what each other will do. And I remember as a child at school, age 13, see, I wanted to be a teacher from when I was 13. So every single member of staff came and taught me. This was at Tiffin when, and I can remember thinking, you don't fool me, any of you lot. You write reports on me. I'm going to write reports on you. And I just told myself at the end of the day, just remember when you're a teacher, Ralph, that none of these people fool you. That you understand them as a child. And I remembered as a child thinking, just remember that you know what's going on. And so
Yeah.
many people know what's going on. And of course, we don't let on. But
No.
you know, and that's
And
so we've
then
got slightly off the point, haven't we?
we have very slightly, but it's very interesting about this business of, for me at least, going back to what how singers can be helped to sing better, whatever that means for them in the moment, is very often reminding them that they've known how to vocalize from the moment they're born. It's as if singing it gets separated from the business of self-expression at quite an early age. And I've been thinking about this quite a lot. And I think, you know, with young singers, because I'm doing quite a lot of work with young singers. I mean, really young, like 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good,
And
good.
the what's so wonderful about these chaps is they're encouraged to sing first and then allow the music into that space,
Great.
rather than saying, oh, you've got a nice voice, let's make you sing in this way and blend and be in tune and do all that.
And
And it
here's a middle
seems a
thing.
risky thing to do, but
Yeah.
actually
yeah.
because of the innateness of the hearing apparatus, the innateness of the desire to vocalize, when you give young singers that freedom, the music pours in.
Well,
Isn't a, there is no resistance.
actually, a dear man, we were playing tennis in the square, and that we've got a place where we can, a private place to play tennis, I'm pleased to say, which is wonderful. And a man comes past with his dogs every day. One day he said, Ralph, you do singing, don't you? And stuff. And I said, yeah, I do singing and stuff. He said, can anyone sing? Meaning, I really want to sing, but I can't. And I said, yes, yes.
Oh,
How do,
so wonderful. Yes.
how do I do it? And this is, we'd stopped the game of tennis to talk to him. How do I do it? And I said, you say good morning to me again. You didn't say, just do it again. You didn't say, good morning. You said, good morning. You went, da, da, da. So say it again. And he said, good morning. I said, that's singing. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was good morning.
You've already written a Britten opera.
So every day when he goes past at the same time when we're playing tennis, he says, good morning.
Brilliant.
We reply.
Yeah, exactly.
And when people, one thing I say, try and say to each choral course at some stage or other is, you will be in a position where someone says they're tone deaf, uses that awful expression, which I can't bear, tone deaf. That does not exist anywhere. If you did, if you were tone deaf, you would say good morning, and you'd use.
Well, you wouldn't. You'd say good morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this very flat
Yeah,
something,
but you
isn't it?
do exactly. You do completely arbitrary noises, and so start with what they do and sing it. So you say, "Sing me a note," and they go, "Yeah, go on, sing me a note." Ah, good. That's singing. You just did. Ah, do another one. Oh, do it again, and they go, "Oh," and you say, "Yeah, that's a different one." Ah, and you just build it up from there.
Exactly. And I think this is what we're doing from babyhood. And I think this link between learning to speak, learning to vocalize, being free, and how that turns into music. The music's innate. The baby is already musical,
Yeah,
the ears.
yeah,
So all we want to do is to continue to develop that, just as you would, you go from, being crawling to walking to running to jumping to skipping. You don't suddenly say, I need to learn how to.
Oh
And
yes,
then there
adults
are some
walk, don't they?
specific things. What?
Oh yes, adults walk, don't they? Let's try and walk.
Yeah,
Doesn't work
that's right.
that
So
way.
they watch the world and they think, oh, this is
Yeah,
what I need to do.
yeah, yeah.
So in the world of singing, it's like we experience singing as something which then is somewhere along the line becomes separated from this business of fundamental desire to speak out in the world in a way which your voice is in many different ways can achieve and stay connected to that sound which is you. So so what's the role of the teacher here? I mean, and the conductor. So I remember being in choir when I was before I went to Westminster Abbey. I was in a little village church choir, and I just loved it. I just so had so much joy in it.
Yes.
And I think that's when my parents thought, well, maybe this is good. So the joy thing is very good. And we had a choir mistress, actually. She was seemingly a lady of about 75, but she was probably only about 40 or 30. I was so little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I do remember, or rather put it the other way, I don't have any memory of being told to sing louder or softer or more in tune or more this or more that. It it was, yes, it was a very, simple village church choir, and I was a little boy, and
Lovely.
obviously, and I pumped the organ sometimes as
Oh,
well. So
really?
yeah, but I don't remember that. So to me, what I do think happens is there gets at some point a confusion, the confusion between the demand of the music
Yes,
and the joy of expressing. So
absolutely.
how do we meet those two things? And this brings me to, I think, what might be a radical idea, which is that vocal production and development of vocal production has nothing to do. The word technique should not be applied to it
I like that. Yes.
because we are. There's two reasons actually. If you look up the word technique in the dictionary,
Yeah.
it always applies to you gaining a skill in manipulating some particular object. So every time you eat your breakfast or drink a cup of tea or ride a bicycle or drive a car or play a violin, you have an object which you learned to manipulate.
Yeah.
And I've got great technique at drinking tea, and sometimes my technique fails and it pours down my shirt. That was lucky. My technique was
Oh, I thought
perfect.
you were going to demonstrate it falling down your shirt. I was.
No, I was in good. No, I just was far. And so you've got this thing where you have an object. There's you, and then there's an object, and you manipulate the object to greater or lesser degree of skill, and that requires technique. The piano, you have to address the piano. You need to address the violin, and every instrumentalist, their goal is to bring that instrument as to make it as part of themselves
Yeah.
as they possibly can, while always knowing that it's separate.
Yeah.
But they're making music, their passion is coming through into that instrument. But that's technique.
Well, I'm sure that you agree with me that every now and then a teacher will say, now, before you play that again, just sing it, on the violin or the cello.
Yeah,
Um,
that is
and we
true.
know Glenn Gould, of course, was taught to sing absolutely everything by his mother,
Yeah.
as we can hear by him still grunting when he plays. But and actually, if instrumental teachers can say, sing it before you start, surely we singers can say, hang on, so we've got it already, have we?
Yes.
We've got it, so we sing it. And we don't let anything get in the way of it. We don't, we
Right. So
automatically put things in the way of it
absolutely. Right.
because
Well, so this is
we
the thing.
want it.
If the modern world, and it may be ever since you know Descartes, maybe, there's been this dichotomy between the mind and the body. It's like the mind is in control of this machine.
Yes,
And so, therefore, we've swallowed whole the idea that the mind controls this machine. And so, the body is your instrument,
yes, yeah,
not in the sense that you are the instrument, but it
yes,
is an
yes,
instrument.
yes,
Yeah. So you then learn. So breathing becomes a matter of learning a technique. That singing a scale in tune is a technique. This is not true.
no,
We need to explore the possibilities of the ears and our sound. So going back to what I said, vocal production is not a matter of technique. It's exploration. It's examining as you just said, what is getting in the way, what is blocking, where are the blocks. This is where it comes back to body stuff, the emotions, the feelings, where we have our own blocks. That's not about individuality. Individuality is the full potential of the individual in the world. And we need to find, as teachers and osteopaths, that which inhibits the expression of that person in the world.
yes,
And that's removing blocks, helping them strengthen certain aspects which might have become switched off or weak. That's vocal production to me.
yes,
And that goes all the way up to how we use the resonances and whether vowel sounds are free to be shaped, expressed, whether the body is under that and helping it is with you sing with the whole body or not. That's vocal production. So where's this technique thing come in? I believe technique is the only music. So let's think about blackbirds. They don't sing Mozart. So what does that tell us? The music is an object. The music is out there. There is something that we need to address. And that's where, in terms of saying, I would love this to have this music to pour into me so that I can then express that part of my experience of being in the world, whether it's Mozart or Dyson or
yes,
Stanford or whatever. So that does require some kind of application. Yes, you can do it all by ear, and that, to my mind, is really great, but it limits you in certain ways. And you and I know that if you can read music successfully, you've got far greater, you can experience many, many more things.
yes,
Uh,
yeah,
and so, understanding, for example, style.
yes,
I think people underestimate style. Style is really important. What's the difference between Monteverdi and Mozart, Purcell and Beethoven, Mahler, that stuff? And those sorts of understandings, and how you address that with this personal voice and then address. That to me is technique. You need to know how to do certain things.
Yes, I remember, as I think probably most singers remember, being in choirs, and that was Durham Cathedral Choir and then King's Choir in Cambridge. And there's no doubt about it, the King's under David was a far better choir than the one I'd been in Durham. But found I was singing less well in the King's one. Partly, I think, because I was just feeling the necessity to be the very best. And I then remember discovering exactly what we're talking about, but it was a simple realization that if I think too much about what I've been told about breathing and what I, to right, relax, Ralph, how do I relax? If I relax completely, I feel like, what do I do? Actually, a shortcut to it was, oh, this is a good piece of music. I like this. Let's really enjoy
Yeah.
it. Fair is the heaven, or whatever it is. And you
Yes.
put everything into it, and your body obeys and
Yes.
becomes good. And so my next simple step was, having discovered that with good music, I sing better.
Yes.
With good music, I sing better. I then discovered that if I try and like music, which I think is less good, and
You can sing it a
find
bit
the
better.
music find the music in it, um, uh, from the words, of course, we're lucky in singing that we've got the words and the text. Then I sing better, and I sing
Yeah.
and I do all this, and I feel good, and it comes out better, and I have far more breath than I thought I had.
And so we've got two poles, haven't we? We've got absolute, I mean, spot on. And I really think this, and it's certain, it's right when you are at a certain level or certain stage in your development as a singer to find music that you love and it just makes you feel happy to sing. I always say this to students, I say, well, what do you want to sing? They often say, "Well, I quite like jazz. Is that okay?" Or I quite like music. Musicals. I said, "Great, yeah,
You're allowed to like
let's
musicals.
let's do Carousel. Let's do Phantom of the
Yeah,
Opera." If
yeah,
it turns you on and you can, that's great.
yeah,
And if having done that, you want to do something. On the classical side, great. But this classical thing is
yeah.
another story.
My
Let's not go there either.
my father's favorite composer was Gershwin, or rather, he had two favorite composers, Gershwin and Messiaen.
Yeah.
And you can get the connection, the harmonic
Yeah,
connection.
definitely. Yeah.
So,
So, the music is the other pole. We are one pole, and it's great, and we could be just blackbirds, if you like,
yeah,
making vigorous assertions of our individuality in the
yes,
world.
yes,
And but the other pole is the music, which pours in and fills us with a different kind of experience. It takes us to a new level. And
yes,
that's what being human could be being about, is taking us to that next level of development, if you like, spiritual, soulful awareness. I'm not saying that, and all living things are part of a great mind. There is a mind. We're not the only things with mind. But, as you go through these levels of sophistication, the potential to come to another level of awareness, and music is a great expression of that. And to participate as a singer,
yeah.
wow, that major sixth, or yeah,
My body. Was that you?
yeah. Somebody just called me. I just have to.
Well, no, I think it sensed I was about to sing, so interrupted very quickly. Um, Now let's just take a practical thing that happens. Somebody comes in who is a very good musician. Okay, they know exactly what the notes are. They know
Yeah,
they want to sing, but they are a complete mess. You may not be able to feel you can generalize because, of course, every people is different, but they are a complete mess physically. They are tense and what sort of thing do you do with them? Can you? I'm just trying to put
yeah.
this into real practice. What
Well,
we're talking.
if you say that specific thing, they are very tense. The
Yes,
first thing I would do would be identify the center of where that tension is. Now, let's say they're highly strung, very intellectually driven. Think everything is in the mind control, for
yes,
example.
yes,
I would then almost certainly start them off doing some very simple brain gym. In other words, find a connection of the mind to body.
Yes.
work, get the hemispheres to communicate,
Yes.
and rather than it all being locked up in one place, everything is an intellectual corridor. So I would do physical work, but when you do brain gym, always I feel that kind of those physical movements, integrative movements, let's call them, immediately get them to breathe and sing with it. So they're seeing it within a framework of something which is happening all the time, and they're moving. So it may just be walking around the room, but I think you can focus it more. That's if it's an intellectual. If it's physical, and that's also possibly true as well. They may be really tight here. They may be can't move their hips very freely. They spend their life sitting in a chair. Then I would always start with something which would be a global unlocking, an exercise which brings them to a new awareness of their connection to the ground. So their posture is starts to get liberated, and they get a new experience of their body. I mean, I won't demonstrate the exercise now, but I call it a flop squat. It's a combination of a number of different things that I've put together. But
I
the
know it.
flop squat,
I
I
do.
think you know the flop squat,
Oh
don't you?
yes,
Yes.
it's very
So
good.
the flop squat, it really gets you to the ground, and you grow back up again, and you find yourself in a different relationship,
Yes.
and you think, oh, that's interesting, and just that new feeling of yourself. So just that would be my first step, is to
Well, can I
get
tell
them.
you what I do sometimes with choirs, and I do more and more? It's what I've just been doing with myself. When you on this chat, we can see ourselves, and it's very
Yeah,
useful. I tend to go towards this when we're talking. And I
yeah,
naturally go
it's
over like this. And I've been thinking to myself, come on, Ralph, sit tall like this. But I can now go one further, because to add a little bit of emotional thing to it, be proud. And if you think emotionally, and it's what I say to choirs nowadays, um, feel proud. Don't be embarrassed to be proud of things. Proud. Imagine you've just created the world. Look, survey it, and be
yes,
proud of it like that. And if you do that, it's far more effective than saying sit tall, do this.
yeah,
And
because that again is an
I've been
outer
doing
thing.
I've been doing that with myself, and I just saw myself on the screen and said, "Come on, you know how to do it. Be proud."
Well, this, of course, again brings us to another thing,
Yeah.
which is that, again, about getting better or being better, whatever we decide
Yes.
that means, which is
Yeah.
very broad and very different for every people. But it's the relationship of the inner to the outer. So if you tell somebody, sit tall, lengthen your neck like this, they're doing something in their body, they're doing something with their body, which is an active thing. If you say what you've just said, feel proud, something inside lifts up and the body responds.
Yes.
So this again goes back to what are the emotional blocks, what are the physical manifestations of the inner world, which
Yes.
is very difficult to access, but we can access it with quite subtlety and carefully
Yeah.
to bring that person to feel how different they can be.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes you need to work on the outside to shift that kind of rock solid structure
Yeah.
in order for something to be allowed out.
Yeah.
But occasionally, it's also possible to say a few words, put your attention into your left foot and feel how you're feeling the ground through the left foot. And a whole wave of feeling comes up and through that person. Sometimes I've actually had, in a very good way, and inexplicably it seemed to me at the time, but we worked it out, a student who I noticed they're standing very much on the right. They're very left brain, right. So the left brain, right foot. So I said, just put your attention on your left foot. Don't stand on your left foot, just put all your attention into your left foot's relationship to the ground. Now sing that phrase again. It was so different, but the significant thing was she burst into tears
Oh, wonderful.
and said, I don't know why I did that. And I said, how do you feel? She said, it's great. But I just need something released inside me. And it's these wonderful things of getting on the inside, the inner-outer relationship, which, of course, singing embodies. The fact that
exactly.
we're taking our inner to the outer and sharing it with the world.
Yes.
And
What we
if
have
any,
here in singing, we've got the therapy, we've got the music.
yeah,
Music is the therapy. And if
yeah,
we can engage it, as we did when we first wanted to do music, so often people have gone away from the first time they wanted to do music. The first time they wanted to do music was when they heard a beautiful sound or saw somebody. Isn't
hmm,
necessarily, I found it isn't necessarily heard the cello.
no,
Sometimes it's I saw the cello and I wanted to play it. Inexplicable, but you go back to that first joy and realization. And if you can get yourself to that first joy and realization with a great piece of music, then the therapy has worked.
hmm, yeah. Well, it's interesting you should say that because I think, I mean, I sent a little diagram to Alex actually. I was talking to a bunch of osteopaths on a workshop which I was asked to run about voice
Yeah,
and osteopathy and how,
yeah,
and I wrote this little diagram, and I think as an osteopath, one of the things we do a lot is listen. Not just listen to what that person's got to say, but
yes,
your hands become the listening post,
yes,
and the body communicates through your hands and reaches the part of you which is not an intellectual, analytical part, but you share something. And so that in the middle of this diagram, there's a little triangle, and in it, right at the center, is active listening. And right around the outside is something which I call the whole. So you can call that the universe, you can call it the environment you're in, whatever, the whole. And then our interface as practitioners, but also as singers, is the relationship, the inner and outer relationship, your relationship to yourself. And the dynamic within you is this the breath relating to the bodies, the structure relating to the sound relating to the structure. This is dynamic, which is constantly happening. And as a teacher, if you interact with that dynamic and say, okay, what's happening here with this person? Where's the weak link, or what's being blocked in that relationship? You've got a dynamic relationship that you are working with, rather than having, let's say, a a method that you say, right, I do this, 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 and you will sing better. Now, I think it's quite useful to have methods because you not to structure things for people, but ultimately it's a dynamic relationship, both of you to the student to themselves, the sound with the environment. Relationship in the end
yeah,
is all of it,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
We must finish soon,
Yeah,
but I think there will be people watching this who perhaps haven't got a singing teacher, um, and would like to but can't at the moment for various reasons. And I think to sum up for them, we might, what you can do is take note of all these things that have been said, but make sure you sing something that you love.
yeah,
Make sure you feel good when you're doing it and feel proud as you do it. Um, Love the words to start with. We singers are so lucky that we've got
yeah.
words because they help us through it. Love the words, um, and feel good about yourself when you do it, and go for the freedom of the breath,
Yeah,
and get it in the right pitch. Don't sing it too high or too low. Don't let the composer tell you the pitch it should be. You are the boss. You're the singer.
true. Ultimately, to take confidence, like you said, pride in your ability to communicate your feelings about being in the world through the music. The music's not a block. The music is the vehicle, and it's always there for you.
That's wonderful. That's a very good way to finish. Thank you very much indeed, Ashley Stafford.
Ralph, it's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye now.